It's hard to believe that the Blazers last year were a 3 seed playing in the conference finals for their first time since the year 2000.
And that'll do. The Portland Trailblazers are going to the conference finals for the first time since 2000.
And now they're on the outside of the playoff picture looking in. So what happened? Why are we not seeing the same Portland team as last year? Well, I think it boils down to more than what most people have thought. What's going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we're going to talk about what's going on with the Portland Trailblazers. Now, there's many reasons as to why they haven't been the same team for most of this year. The first reason is actually their strength of schedule. Now, comparing them to other teams that are around the same spots, so you got teams like the Thunder, the Grizzlies, the Spurs, and the Suns. Yes, the Thunder have been very impressive because they've had a harder schedule, but their pieces are in question. We don't even know. Gallinari and Steven Adams could still be traded. Maybe CP3 as well, but I feel like that's less likely at this point, at least for this year. As for the Suns and Grizzlies, both have played very well, and they're both flashy young teams, but they're inexperienced. And they played a lot of easier teams than teams like the Blazers or the Spurs, which is what it'll probably come down to. Now, granted, there's also the Pelicans who are getting Zion back, but the Pelicans is also another inexperienced team that is going to probably be on the outside looking in, although you can't count them out. But between the Blazers and the Spurs, both of them actually have the top 4 longest postseason streaks right now, and DeRozan and Aldridge have been in the trade block all year as well, but that's not really the only thing that could be said for the Portland Trailblazers. There's other stuff that could help them out in the future, and that is their injuries. Yes, they've had a long list of injuries so far this year. I mean, obviously last year, Jusuf Nurkic had that gruesome leg injury. It was just really hard to watch, even for any fan, really. And I mean, Zach Collins went out just after a few games with shoulder surgery. Rodney Hood is going to miss the rest of the season, most likely with a torn Achilles. Skal Labissiere has missed some recent games due to a knee injury. And CJ McCollum just missed the game the other night against the Golden State Warriors with a sprained ankle. Now, what does this do for them? Well, it hurts a few things, mainly their depth, because no offense to some of their players like Nasir Little, Gary Trent Jr., Moses Brown, Jalen Horde, but I don't know how reliable they are for a playoff contending team in 2020. And I mean, they could be good down the line, but as of right now, I don't know if that's really what Portland needs in order to be fighting for at least the 8th seed. And it also hurts the team defensively. And actually, another thing is that 7 pieces left from the team last year. Notable losses being guys like Al-Farouq Aminu, you got Mo Harkless, Enes Kanter, Seth Curry, and Evan Turner. Now, I mean, with the exception of probably Seth Curry, I mean, most of those guys always contributed defensively, especially Enes Kanter in the playoffs. But I mean, Seth Curry also provided some shooting too. And replacing them with wings such as Carmelo Anthony or Mario Hezonja, yes, that will give you more floor spacing, more offensive weapons, but at the same time, it'll also be detrimental on the defensive end of the floor. Now, they did just make a trade to obtain Trevor Ariza from Sacramento, who has shown his value recently with teams such as the Houston Rockets and also in that stint last year with the Washington Wizards, but was also a disappointment for teams like the Suns last year in the early half of the season and the Sacramento Kings so far this year. So whichever version of him that they get could be very huge to this team's chances. Another reason is that last year was probably a bit of a fluke. Now, yes, they were better than their opponents in the playoffs. They were a better team than the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were a better team than the Denver Nuggets, but it didn't really seem like a championship team. And looking back in history, I mean, we can see the statistics. Over the past 10 years, the only team that has won a title being in the bottom half of the league in assists per game was the 2011-2012 Miami Heat. And their road to the playoffs, they played teams like the Knicks, the Pacers, the Celtics, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, all of which were in the bottom 10 except for the Celtics, and that's probably why they gave them the best fight, honestly, of those 4 teams, although they were kind of getting up there in age as well. And it appeared that last year the Warriors and the Rockets were probably the 2 real top 2 teams in the Western Conference, although that's not to say that Portland didn't really have a chance, because if you remember, they were up over 15 in games 2, 3, and 4, and if they would have held on in those games, they would have been up 3-1 in the series, which would have been pretty nice. I mean, obviously the Golden State Warriors have blown 3-1 leads before, So, I mean, they could come back from one, and they nearly did in the finals, assuming everyone would have been healthy. But with that being said, that they could have almost came back in the finals, the Portland Trailblazers could have maybe beat the Raptors. I'm not saying it's the likeliest outcome, though, but it's definitely possible. And another thing that really hurts the Portland Trailblazers is that throughout their history, they've just been cursed. And they probably have been the most cursed NBA franchise in history. In fact, in April of 2017, which is almost 3 years ago now, I actually did a project on the Portland Trailblazers as to why they're the most cursed NBA franchise. I mean, it all starts from when they traded Moses Malone for basically nothing. I mean, it was kind of embarrassing. Their only championship, which was led by Bill Walton as the finals MVP, obviously had many injuries to come after that season. Drafting Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan, not really the greatest moment for them. Also, Arvydas Sabonis, who many said would probably be one of the greatest NBA players of all time had he came over earlier, had to wait 6 years to come over when he was far out of shape at that point in 1995. As for the 2000 Western Conference Finals that we mentioned earlier, they were up against the Los Angeles Lakers with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, and then they ultimately blew a 15-plus point lead in Game 7 that they had going into the fourth quarter.
Timeouts left. The Lakers have 2. Bryant to shot.
So they were that close to making the finals, and who knows, they probably could have won a championship there. You also got to look at Brandon Roy, who's had injuries throughout his career. He looked like something really special, and then ultimately he just had so many knee injuries, and that really didn't stop for the injuries around that time, because also their number 1 pick, Greg Oden, suffered similar knee injuries and foot injuries as well. And the fact that they picked him over a guy like Kevin Durant doesn't really make the bleeding any less. And even in more recent history, you can look at some of their off seasons, such as the 2015 off season, where they lost 4 of 5 starters and a few key bench players. I mean, nobody had expectations for Portland the next year, and a lot of people thought they'd be missing the playoffs for a few years to come, but they've surprised us, and now we're at this point where we do have expectations for them in 2020. And as for last year, of course, in the playoffs, they didn't have Yusuf Nurkic, who could have been really big for them to help play some defense, to prevent some penetration, and also provide a post scorer down low. So all that would be really nice for a Portland team. Now, in the end, I actually do believe in the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, if we can talk about those teams again earlier, I mean, the Thunder, the Spurs, the Trailblazers, Grizzlies, Suns, Pelicans. If I had to believe in one team for this year of those 6 teams, I would probably pick the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, they've shown countless times that they're going to get in the playoffs. I mean, they've done it before. You know, they almost missed it a few years ago in 2017, and ultimately they closed out the deal and got in. And they've been a high seed recently. Now, of course, they're not going to be a 3 seed like 2018 and 2019, but I definitely think that they will get in the playoffs. And really, if they don't, I don't think that's too bad either, because I still wouldn't really blow it up. I mean, next year you could have Lillard, CJ, Carmelo Anthony, Yusuf Nurkic, and maybe if they don't bring back Whiteside, they'll have still more than enough money to sign key assets or make good trades to acquire veterans to compete once again. Especially after that Kent Bazemore, Trevor Ariza trade, which saved them over $12 million in itself. And after all, they're really only a few games back of that 8 seed after all this craziness, with constant lineup changes and handful of injuries. And when guys like CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, Zach Collins, all of them come back later this season, they will be better on both ends of the floor, and it will also elevate their depth because you're going to have more players that are playing significant minutes. And when fully healthy, I'm pretty sure that teams like the Los Angeles Clippers, the Los Angeles Lakers, or the Utah Jazz would probably not want to see a team like Portland in the first round. As we mentioned before, they have a ton of experience, and they have arguably one of the clutchest players in the league in Damian Lillard. CJ McCollum also showed some of that in Game 7 last year against the Denver Nuggets in the second round. And really, a lot of it kind of depends on how Nurkic comes back, which I believe that him taking time to kind of get himself back in shape and back healthy will actually help him to be more prepared for when he comes back. Same thing with Zach Collins, because he was only projected to miss about 4 weeks originally, and it's been a little over 2 months now. But guys, that's basically going to do it for this video. I just kind of wanted to talk about the Portland Trailblazers and how really over time, yes, they've been very unlucky, and it doesn't really look too great for them right now. I mean, yes, they did get a crazy win the other day with Damian Lillard going off for 61 points, granted against kind of a shell of a Golden State Warriors team with all those injuries right now. But regardless, it was still a fantastic win, probably one of the craziest games I've seen this season. So let me know in the comments below what you think of the Portland Trailblazers this year. Do you think they should blow it up? Do you think they'll actually make the playoffs? What should their expectations be? And also, what do you guys think their problem was? Do you think it's just the injuries that they have? Do you think they were just a one-year wonder? Or do you think that they're just a franchise that's historically cursed? Personally, I don't think there is a definite answer. I really think it's a combination of all three. And I think the Portland Trailblazers will be fine. But again, that's going to do it for me. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. I make a lot of these videos, but that's going to do it for me, and I'm out. Peace.